I've been working on my incremental game IIGG for a little while now, and I've been making devlogs about the process. But that can always eat away at so much development time because I always have to plan each devlog, think about the subjects I want to include, and write a script for my voiceover like I'm doing right now. Hello. So instead, I'm going to take you through an entire week of development, what I'm working on, and show you in real time my janky process of putting together a game. So let's get started with... The first thing I want to do before I get working on any new features is to take you through the current state of the game, point out the issues, and highlight some of the parts that really do need working on. As soon as you load the game, you can see that the menu isn't exactly the nicest looking thing. I put this together very quickly, and if I go into the achievements, you can see that it's not complete, but at least this tab actually works. The settings menu is in an even worse state as it's literally just a single button that changes the language from English to German, which only slightly works right now. I'm not fluent in German, but these translations don't seem to be accurate. But fixing the menu up seems like more of a weekend thing to do, so I'll save that for later. Let's get into the game. So if you saw the last video, you would have seen that I changed the clicking in the game. You can no longer click rapidly on resources. Instead, it's on a timer, starting at 2 seconds, and every time it counts down while the mouse button is pressed, you harvest resources. I basically did this because it's a lot nicer on your hands. You'd have to sit there clicking thousands of times, and it completely ruined the balance of the game because in the time it took a goblin to go to a tree, harvest some resources, carry it back to the base, and deposit the 4 it's got, you could click hundreds of times and make him completely obsolete, shattering his self-confidence. Well, no more. It still needs a custom cursor to visualize that timer, but I'll get to that. Now let's go to the upgrades menu. This still needs a lot of work, it's not too visually pleasing, but I did this rather quickly and it works nicely enough. The little line renderer I made makes it very easy to see which ones are connected, and it just needs a new coat of paint. As for the gameplay side, it's still not balanced. I was supposed to get that done in the last video, but I never really did, so whoops. You can see the upgrade costs start out alright at 5 or 10 wood, but very quickly it gets to 50, 100, 200, 400, and then flatlines. And the tree upgrades all cost 50 wood, which is both cheaper but also worse design. So I gotta fix both of those. But to know how to balance the game, why don't I implement a new feature that will massively help with this? In the base menu, I want to add a new tab that tells you your current resource rates per minute. So how much you're getting every minute if you were to just leave your goblins to work away. Now there's a few ways to do this. Games like Cookie Clicker use a proactive system. Each building has a set cookie per second rate. So to get your overall rate, you just add them together. There's no variable that can change that. It'll always be the same. However, for IIGG, there are a few things to consider when calculating this. The goblins all pick a random resource that's available out of the closest stage. So if there's trees in both stage 1 and 2 that are ready to harvest, they'll always go for the one in stage 1. Which is a lot quicker than going for the resources further away from the base. And similar to that, each resource spawns with a random offset distance to the base. So they're all slightly different travel times to and from the resource. Another thing is, they can run out. So the goblin might be able to carry 4 wood, but if the tree only has 3 available, that'll also affect the rate. So instead, I'm going to need a reactive system in place that calculates a rate based on how many resources you've gained in the last 60 seconds, that uses a rolling buffer of, say, 6 seconds, and just runs them through a queue to get the total. So let's get into Visual Studio and get to work on this. So I know this needs some class or struct to store a list of resources, and then a queue that it keeps filling with this data, and then when the queue has more than 10 chunks in it, it just kicks them out the other end, creating the rolling buffer. I'll get something written up and I'll be back to see if it actually works. Okay, I've got it all set up here. In the base manager, there's a new component called a resource buffer, which has the main buffer code, as well as a new class called a buffer chunk, which stores the data. This new UI menu I created simply requests the data every 6 seconds and updates the text for each resource type. So now, in game, if I get some goblins and let them run, you can see the incoming wood per minute updating to this amount, and it's balancing out at around 1900 wood. That's ideal, and I can now use this feature to get a sense of how much each upgrade should cost based on how much you earn at each stage. I obviously need to make the UI look nicer, but I'll get to that. Another little feature I want to add is a little pop-up over the base every time a goblin collects a resource that says what they deposited and how much. This will just be a tiny world canvas with an image and text component, so that's easy enough, but I need a nice way for it to slide up and fade out so it looks a little cleaner. Right, I've got this in place and added an animator that literally just slides it up, fades out the alpha over time, and I've hooked it up to the base. Let's see how this looks. Okay, it looks alright, except when multiple resources get added, they overlap and it looks kinda bad, so I need to figure out a way to push them up with each one. I'll be back once I get it sorted. Alright, this has been a bit of a pain. I don't know why, but my smooth brain just can't get this set up to look nice. I tried just shifting the position every time, but it was far too janky, and because of how it clears the list every time they get pushed up, there's a small window where they aren't moved as they fade out, but that's fine. It looks good in game, and that's such a minute detail that most people won't even see, so I shouldn't get caught up on. And that's basically all I've got time for today. Whenever I work on UI stuff or random little bits, time just absolutely sinks away. It doesn't seem real, but hopefully I have a better go of it tomorrow. Alright, time to get some more bits into the game. And today I'm going to start with the goblins and add some more polish to them. First of all, when they interact with a tree, they currently do absolutely nothing. There's no animation, no indicator aside from the basic progress bar I made, and it just looks far too flat. So let's chuck an animator on them and see what I can do. I think I'm just going to scale the sprite a bit so it stretches and flattens like that maybe. And you know what? I like that. Okay, feature complete, wrap it up and move on to the next one. Right, the big feature I wanted to add today is the loot gremlin, a randomly spawning little character that when clicked on will drop a random pickup that gives you either some resources, a temporary speed up boost, or a permanent stat upgrade for your goblins. This little guy will spawn in at a resource, run about to a few different ones, and then vanish after a while unless you pop him. Let's start by making the character. I set up this temporary sprite, which is the regular goblin with a janky arm bent backwards, carrying the bag used for the stat icon. It looks a little goofy, but I've set up its object with all of the necessary components like movement and rotation. I had to rewrite a whole chunk of the goblin code to break out the stuff that was needed, which I was going to do the first time around, but just never bothered. Past me is always my biggest enemy. Anyway, he's working now, and if I chuck some more code into the spawner, I can get him to pop up every 60 seconds. These guys won't use the same click and hold interaction as the resources, just click them 5 times and they'll die. They look pretty terrible because they spawn literally inside the resource. I'll have to add a little offset so they spawn around them instead, but that's alright. I've set up a few animations for them to jump around while idle and to float up into the sky before disappearing. What I want to happen is for it to ascend, hover in the air, and then vanish in a puff of smoke, so I've got to waste more time playing around with the particle system until it looks at least slightly passable. Right, after battling some weird offset and timing issues, I've got this animation that doesn't look too bad. And now with a whole bunch spawned in, I can click them all away. This is incredibly satisfying. Maybe I should turn this into some sort of minigame. Anyway, that's basically all I have time for today. Let's hope that I can get lots of development done with an early start tomorrow. I didn't start early today. Instead, I had a late start and just took Gilly out for a nice walk to the duck pond. Here he is acting very normally, getting a nice break in from assisting me with his game dev. But enough of that, back to the loot gremlins. Now I just need him to actually drop something. To do this, I think it's just going to have a prefab reference, and it'll just instantiate it right before it destroys itself, which is all masked by the smoke particles. To begin with, I've just hard-coded the drop to be this stopwatch that sets the game speed to 2x, and then resets it after 30 seconds. Using the same selector code from everything else, I set this up very quickly, so now if I click on this little loot gremlin, a stopwatch pops out of him, and now the game is sped up, making everything twice as fast. When I tidy up all the UI, I'll add a visual indicator in-game for this effect, but in the inspector you can see the game speed is set to 2. Ideal. Now I need to get to the other drops in the game, like the resource drop and the stat boosters. To do this, I'm just going to write a generic class for a pickup, and then have different classes that inherit from this base and have their own features. The resource item will need to call the resource manager, see what types are currently available, and pick one of them when it's spawned in, and randomly generate a value which I'm going to base as a percentage of your current bank, with some caps in place to not make it too silly. And then, when it's selected, it just needs to deposit its stack into the base just like the player or goblin does. As for the stat one, it'll randomly select a stat on start, set itself up that way, and then when selected, we'll just add 1 point of that stat to the goblins. Now I just have to program all of that. Alright, And they're all in the game, and as a bit of balance, I've set it so that the resource pickup will spawn 50% of the time, a time boost will be 30%, and the remaining 20% will be a stat pickup. I just felt the stat boosts are the best, so they should probably appear less often. I may even add more pickups later on for even more effects, but these three are good for now. To round off the loot gremlin, I've recorded some sound effects for him to make when spawning, taking damage, and laughing away when they leave. I can hook these up to an audio player, the same one that handles the resources and originally came from my Lego Loco remake, and these sounds can be easily triggered. Voice acting is not my strong suit, but they sound pretty good. It's a little isolated because nothing else has any sound effects yet, but I'll add more as I go. And that wraps up the loot gremlins for now. I might go back and tweak them later down the line if I need to change anything, but they're definitely a good addition to the gameplay. Now let's jump ahead to... The whole concept of this video was to show you everything I did in the week, day by day. I'm currently working on editing this video and I only have 2 clips from Thursday, neither of which actually have any context or anything in them of note. I have no idea what happened here. I definitely worked on the game on Thursday, but I guess now it's... Right, so today I just want to do a lot of little tasks that have been bugging me for a while, starting with the resource colliders. Because I'm using sprites for the objects, I could have just used sprite colliders which perfectly match the pixels, except because I'm using the 3D collisions for everything, this doesn't really work. You can mix the 2D and 3D physics systems in Unity, but it's just less than ideal. Up until this point, I've been using a simple box collider scaled to roughly the right size. Except when it comes to the tree, it's always been a pain to click on something near it, as the invisible bounds around the tree trunk block collisions when it shouldn't. So instead, I'm just going to make some rudimentary shapes in Blender and use these meshes as the collider instead. So I'll just open the reference image up, make a basic outline, back in a bit. Okay, I've got all these made and can now drop them into the resource data so it loads the correct collider, and now the resources don't block clicks that are outside the sprite. Annoyingly, you can't make a mesh collider that's concave and a trigger, so the tree doesn't have the trunk as part of its collider, but that's fine, they're all a lot more accurate now. I'm not going to change the Goblin's hitboxes, they're fine as a square, but the one thing that does need sorting with them is the fact that they spawn inside the base and target the center of resources, instead of aiming for the edges. To fix this, I'm just going to write a simple function in my utils class that returns a point in an area around the target, by simply adding a random number to the given vector in each direction. I already have this in my utils class with vector 2s, so I just need to create a new version with vector 3s, which looks something like this. It can either take in 2 floats or a vector 3, and has a bonus parameter to only return a point on the edge of the area as opposed to inside of it. When they spawn, it can just call this function to offset the position, and it's all good to go. Such a small change makes all the difference. On to the next feature. The Sweeper Hut, along with the other minigames, needs a whole bunch of work, but I'm not going to do all of that right now, and instead just focus on how they work in the world. At the minute, the Sweeper Hut is immediately ready to use, and you can just abuse this system to instantly get infinite resources, which isn't exactly ideal. So instead what I want to do is to set up a new state for the buildings, where they are broken to begin with and each have a cost to repair before you can use them. To get this done, I just need to create a new state for them to say they're broken, and then pop up a little UI menu to repair it. Once you've paid the price, it unlocks the buildings game or feature, and then works as it already does. I think the Sweeper Hut, as the first minigame, will cost 250 wood to repair, which is a little ways into the game, but not too far. I might change that later when I balance everything though, to make it a bit cheaper, to show the player early what these buildings are. I'm not going to rebalance the Sweeper Hut itself just yet, that'll come in the next video alongside a bunch of other minigames, but I'll get this repair system in place and be right back. Okay, here we go. If I start the game and click on the hut, you can see now that this little UI menu pops up. I haven't actually hooked up its disappearing yet, so you can click on everything else and it'll still be there, but I'll get to that. You can see in the little menu, it currently says what it is, how much it is to repair, and has this little button here to fix it. So I need to save up 250 wood, which I can do by just cheating, so there we go, that should cover the costs, and now, if I press that button, the UI disappears, and the building is now active, opening the game up like before. I've got a few more buildings that will be in the game that will also use this system, so it's good to get it in there. And like I said, you'll see more of them later. But for now, on to the next feature. The last one I want to add today is a little notification that pops up when you unlock an achievement in game, separate from the Steam one, because you might have Steam pop-ups disabled, or maybe playing a non-Steam version if I decide to do that, and it's just a nice to have feature. The way that the scenes are set up is perfect for this, because I could just attach the UI to the achievement manager, which is in a persistent scene away from everything else, and just set the priority of the canvas really high so it always draws on top. I made this panel here with all of the basic information on show, and I don't think it looks too bad for a quick mock-up. When the achievement manager is called to unlock an achievement, it'll call a class on the panel to update all of the information, and then trigger an animator with this clip that enables the panel, slides it down, lets it sit there for a bit, and then disappears again, disabling the panel in the process. That's all super easy to do, so I'll get that done and then get into the game to watch it pop. As I've been earning achievements as I test the game, the only thing I have left is to complete the game by unlocking the final upgrade, so it's time to grind. I could sit here and play the game normally, but it's basically impossible at this stage as there's no upgrades for any of the later resources, so gaining 100,000 of each of them would take a stupid amount of time. Instead, I could just go into the inspector and give myself millions of resources instantly. Now all I need to do is buy the achievement, and I forgot to localize the text, so I just earned ACH_milestone_4_name. But at least the pop-up looks good, and that's a super easy fix. Ideal. I still need to make a proper UI asset set to make everything look a bit nicer than the basic shapes, which is partly what I'm going to be doing this weekend, which is coming up right about... This weekend started off with a break away from game dev as we're in the middle of a heatwave here, so we took Gilly out to explore some new areas that we've never been to before. He managed to find a big stick and made the most of it. The heatwave wasn't all ideal though, because it cooked some of the network infrastructure near our place, and as of recording this a week later, we still don't have an internet connection. Not great really, but let's check back in with the game development. So this weekend I'm going to be focusing on the menu and anything UI related. The menu currently looks pretty bad and is missing a whole bunch of features, so I need to sort this out. I think for now the only things that I'm going to change on the main menu are the buttons here. The multiple colours and the font sizes just look terrible, and they currently have a weird hover interaction that changes the outline to red, so this needs to be sorted. The first fix is to cap the font size for the text to a smaller value, let's call it 50 for now, and also to align the text to the left, and it instantly looks a lot cleaner. I want the play button to be unique, so I'll leave it green for now, but I may do something else later on. As for the interactions, I want to change this to use an animator instead, and conveniently, Unity has this exact feature built into buttons and will automatically create the controller for you. So with that created, I can start animating some buttons. All I want to do with the animator is to change the scale of the button on hover, so it's very obvious which one is highlighted. That literally needs 2 keyframes in the animator, and by tweaking the speed of the transitions in the animation controller, that's ready to go. That is much better. When I get to it, I want to also add a little extra effect like a shimmer across the sprite, but that will require the UI assets first. For now, this looks a whole lot cleaner. Now, because building the UI always takes me ages and it's not the most exciting thing to watch, I'm going to build out the foundations of the achievement and settings menu and then go over all of it once everything is in place. So I'll be back later with that.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, it's now later and I've got 2 mostly working menus. For the achievements, I've just prettied up the panels a bit, including more info like the global unlock percentage and a nicer looking scroll bar. I still need to add a way to sort them so that all of your unlocked achievements are at the top, or by unlock date, default sort, or as a single list. For all of the UI, I made some basic shapes to piece them all together. This set is in a state right now, it's all over the place and will need to be replaced, but it works to get everything roughly how I want it. Most of the work I've done is on the settings menu by getting in all of the functionality for video, audio, and gameplay based settings. In the video settings, you can now change the language and resolution with these new drop downs and toggle full screen and VSync. These are all pretty easy. Unity has functions to call to change all of these settings, so this took no time at all. But the audio settings are a bit weirder. For some reason, there's no way to toggle mute on an audio mixer, and instead the only way is to slide the volume down to -80 decibels. But the issue there is that I wanted a toggle mute button as well as the volume slider, and those two would just overwrite each other, so I could either write some logic to handle that, or an easier way I found was just to create a child group called mute that has all of the other groups inside it, and then toggle mute just sets that group's volume instead. It's a bit stupid because in the editor you can toggle the mute on them, but oh well, this all works. In the gameplay settings tab, you can toggle the pop-up numbers, progress bars, hover outlines, and the day-night cycle. I still need to polish this menu up, but I've run out of time this week, which means I've run out of time in this video. But before you go, don't forget to wishlist IG on Steam, Check out my Patreon page for more updates, and if you become a paid member, you get a Steam key on release as well as have your name featured in the game as a Goblin. So win-win really. And finally, let's speedrun a round of Subscriber Wars. The competition is underway and there's some fighting over here, some fighting over there. Lava and Joshua are both just sat in the zone taking damage, not caring at all. Florent Mole is just chilling in the middle. Lava is still outside and Florent Mole is the winner. Well done to you. What an easy game to win. But anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.